I once had a picture-perfect family. Wealth, property, and a son and a daughter who were like jewels. Then came the devastating addiction. Right before my eyes, they both sank into darkness, little by little. Addiction didn't just take my wealth, it took my children too. Today I am destitute, living only with a heart full of sorrow. Before you listen to this story, if you are a new viewer of our channel, please subscribe to our channel.
John Robinson was a strong, hard-working man of 47. He lived in a house he had inherited in the suburb of Los Angeles. John was a successful real estate developer. He had seen many ups and downs in his career, but had managed everything through his own hard work and intelligence. His wife, Sarah, a former school teacher, meticulously managed their household. Their love had borne 2 children, their son, Brian, 19, and their younger daughter, Emily, 17. Brian was the family's pride. He was the star player on the local community college basketball team. His dream was to play basketball at a D1 college on a scholarship, and then make it to the NBA. His height, agility, and skill set him apart from everyone else. The best college coaches had their eyes on him. Emily was the complete opposite of Brian. She was calm, composed, and incredibly brilliant. Her dream was to get a degree in physics from the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, and work for NASA. Posters of Einstein and Marie Curie adorned the walls of her room. Science books were her constant companions. The Robinson family was the very picture of the American dream. They went to church every Sunday morning and had picnics by the lake in the afternoon. During summer vacations, they would go hiking along the California coast or in Utah's national parks. A strange sense of peace filled John's heart. Everything he had achieved through hard work felt worthwhile when he saw his happy family. He often told Sarah, "Our 2 children are the greatest achievements of our lives." Their house was in a beautiful area of Los Angeles' San Fernando Valley. It had a large garden, a swimming pool, and a double garage. At Christmas, their house would sparkle with lights. Their neighbors didn't envy them, they respected them. John was a respected member of the community. He regularly participated in local school fundraisers and organized sports events for underprivileged children. Sarah was active in her church's women's group and helped families new to the area. John's chest would swell with pride when he received calls from Brian's college, hearing the coach praise his son's performance. Emily's science projects were so impressive that she almost always won first place at the school fair. Both of them seemed to be on the right track in life. John and Sarah had only one desire: for their children's dreams to come true. Everything they had built through their hard work was for their children's bright future. Their only prayer was that this happy picture would never fade. But they didn't know that a dark shadow was slowly gathering behind this golden future, a shadow that would destroy their carefully tended garden in an instant.
Changes in Brian started to appear when he was in his junior year of college. His performance on the basketball team began to decline. The coach repeatedly warned him, but Brian would make excuses. "I'm tired. The academic pressure is too much." John noticed that Brian no longer spent time with the family as he used to. Hanging out with friends became a regular part of his routine. Coming home late at night, a strange smell after he entered his room, all of it made John and Sarah worry. At first, they thought it was perhaps the new college environment and new friends that had made Brian a bit unruly. All college boys go through this phase. But one day, while cleaning Brian's room, Sarah found a small plastic bag containing some white powder. Terrified, she showed it to John. John didn't want to believe it at first. His Brian? How could he do something like this? But the smell and the appearance of the bag made him realize it was cocaine. That night, when Brian returned home, John confronted him sternly. Brian initially denied it and got angry. But when John held up the bag of cocaine, Brian broke down. He confessed that he had started using it under the influence of some college friends. At first, it was just for fun at parties, but it gradually became a habit. He apologized to his parents and promised he would never do it again. John and Sarah breathed a sigh of relief. They thought their son would change. But Brian didn't change. The addiction to cocaine was so powerful that he could no longer control himself. His basketball scholarship was revoked. He dropped out of college. A deep sense of despair filled John's eyes. He was mentally devastated to see his son's dream shatter. Meanwhile, changes started to appear in Emily as well. John and Sarah were so preoccupied with Brian that they hadn't paid much attention to Emily. Emily had a calm disposition. She never went out like Brian or partied with friends. But suddenly, she became restless. Her grades started to drop. She would sit silently in her room all the time, not wanting to talk to anyone. One night, Emily was found in a severely ill state. She was having trouble breathing, her body was sweating, and her eyes were red. She was rushed to the hospital. When the doctor informed John and Sarah that Emily had overdosed on heroin, the ground beneath their feet gave way. John couldn't believe it. His brilliant, calm daughter was a heroin addict? He knew Brian used cocaine, but Emily? How was it possible? The doctor further explained that Emily had been using heroin for some time, which had been slowly poisoning her body. John and Sarah's happy home began to crumble before their eyes. Their American dream had turned into a nightmare. They both realized that their children's lives were now captive to an unseen enemy called drugs. The question that haunted them was whether they could ever return to a normal life after all this.
Both Brian and Emily were now deep in the clutches of drugs. When John had scolded Brian for using cocaine, Brian had promised he would never do it again. But he didn't keep his word. Instead, the cocaine addiction pushed him into an even deeper abyss. After dropping out of college, he started spending his time with the city's coke dealers. John and Sarah tried to send Brian to a de-addiction center multiple times. The first time, he stayed clean for a few weeks, but then returned to his dark life. The second time, he ran away from the center. Emily's situation was even more dire. The brilliant student who dreamed of Caltech was now lost in a heroin haze. Her calm demeanor had been replaced by aggression. She would do anything for heroin. Stealing money from her mother's purse, using her father's credit card to buy expensive drugs online, these became daily occurrences. John wondered if his daughter had truly changed so much, or if it was the effect of the drugs. One night, John noticed that Emily's expensive laptop was missing from her room. When he asked her about it, Emily first denied it, then flew into a rage and verbally abused him. John realized that his daughter was no longer the Emily he knew. The drug addiction had completely consumed her. Both he and Sarah fell into despair over their children. Meanwhile, Brian also became reckless. He would often stay out all night. Fights with friends, trouble with the police, these became his constant companions. John grew tired of bailing his son out of jail. His real estate business began to suffer. He couldn't attend meetings or talk to clients. His mind was constantly worried about Brian and Emily. The demand for money kept increasing. Both Brian and Emily wanted an unimaginable amount of money for drugs. At first, John gave it to them, thinking they might get better. But that didn't happen. Instead, John's savings began to dwindle. He was forced to mortgage his ancestral home. His business started to fail. John had to lay off many of his employees. His bank account was rapidly emptying. One night, Brian came to his father and started demanding money. When John refused, he became violent. He pushed John to the ground and snatched his wallet. When Sarah screamed at the sight, Brian pushed her down as well. That day, John understood that his children were no longer in control of themselves. The drug addiction had consumed their humanity. Emily also started going out with her friends. John learned that Emily regularly attended drug parties with her boyfriend and friends. Once, Emily was caught by the police. John spent a lot of money to bail her out, but Emily showed no remorse. For her, drugs were everything. Amidst all this, John's health began to decline. High blood pressure, insomnia, and mental stress were slowly making him sick. Sarah also became mentally distraught. Their American dream had turned into a nightmare. They couldn't see an end to this decay. They wondered if their children had any future at all.
The Robinson family situation grew worse day by day. John lost his business completely. Almost all the money he had gotten from mortgaging his house was spent on Brian and Emily's drugs. Their luxurious lifestyle,
big house, and expensive cars were all things of the past. They were forced to move into a small apartment in the city. John, once a successful businessman, now did odd jobs to support his family. Sarah started looking for her old teaching job, but finding a new job at her age was difficult. Brian and Emily no longer stayed at home as they used to. Brian was often out with dealers. The intense addiction to heroin and cocaine had brought him to the streets. He got involved in petty crimes like theft and robbery. The police caught him multiple times, but John bailed him out each time. His reputation in his community was completely ruined. People would whisper when they saw him and pity his children. Emily's condition was even more tragic. Her boyfriend, who had introduced her to the world of heroin, made her do various criminal activities. Emily was often missing for nights on end. John and Sarah would file missing person reports with the police, but the police were helpless too. One day, John learned that Emily had started selling her body for drug money. This news was like a thunderbolt to John. His brilliant, calm daughter had now become a prostitute. Once, Brian was seriously injured in a fight with some dealers and was admitted to the hospital. John spent all his savings trying to save him, but even after recovering, Brian went back to the world of drugs. His body had become so weak from the effects of drugs that he could no longer play sports. His dream of becoming a basketball player had long since turned to dust. Sarah, who had endured all of this for so long, was not in a good mental state. She would often cry out, "Why did our life turn out like this? What sin did we commit?" John would console her, but the same question haunted his own mind. One morning, John and Sarah learned that Brian had been found dead in a secluded area on the outskirts of the city. He had died of a drug overdose. Brian's body was so emaciated and weak that it looked as if he hadn't eaten in years. His eyes were sunken and his skin was pale. John was speechless when he saw his son's body. The boy he had once dreamed of seeing as a basketball star now lay lifeless in a morgue. Sarah fainted. All their hopes and dreams seemed to be buried with Brian's body. A few days after Brian's death, another tragic event occurred. Emily, who had been involved in various criminal activities and prostitution, was also found dead. She, too, had died of a drug overdose. Her body was as emaciated and weak as Brian's. When John saw his daughter's body, he completely broke down. He felt that everything was over. His carefully tended garden, his American dream, all had been obliterated by the scourge of drugs.
John Robinson is now a destitute, broken man. He has lost his house, his business, his wealth, everything. But the greatest loss has been to his soul. His two children, around whom he had woven all his dreams, have also left him. Drug addiction consumed both of them, and with them it consumed John and Sarah's happy home. John now sits silently on a bench in a small city park. His gaze is fixed on the distant, blurry horizon. There are no tears in his eyes, only a profound emptiness. He often thinks about his past life, about those golden days when his family was the picture of the American dream. Brian's basketball games, Emily's science projects, they all come alive in his memory. But these memories now cause him more pain. He wonders where he went wrong. Did he not give his children enough time? Or was the power of drugs so great that nothing could stop it? These questions gnawed him every moment. Sarah has also lost her mental balance. She often screams out Brian and Emily's names. John holds her, but there is no one to hold him. Their life is now a story of silent agony. John often sees other parents in the park playing with their children, laughing and talking. He feels that all of this has been snatched away from him. He will never taste that happiness again. He feels like a living corpse. One afternoon, an old man in the park asked John, "Do you come here often? You look very worried." John looked at him, a silent question in his eyes. He said slowly, "I lost my children. Drug addiction took them away. It took away all my dreams, everything. I am now living only with their memories.
The old man remained silent for a moment, then placed a hand on John's shoulder and said, "May God grant peace to your soul." John nodded. He knows there is no peace in his life anymore. His life is now an endless darkness. John Robinson's story is not his alone. It is the story of thousands of families who have lost everything to the scourge of drugs. It is a reflection of a terrifying truth that shows how drug addiction can destroy a well-established family, how it can push a bright future into darkness, and how it can turn a father's American dream into an eternal nightmare. John Robinson now lives only with the memory of his children, and for the rest of his life, he will continue to battle this silent torment.